Joining me now, Ankush Khardori, former federal prosecutor and author of Open File. Very good to see you, my friend. Let's get into this because the Times reports an official described the president as livid over news reports that his prized new jet did not have the advanced security that his old plane had. So what do you make of Congressman Hymes's analysis of the tools that the White House is using to get to the bottom of this leak? And even if the DOJ says the reporters aren't the targets, does this have the effect of intimidation or suppression?
Yeah, I'm really glad you asked that because I think the Justice Department statement is very disingenuous because it kind of doesn't even matter if they're the quote unquote targets of the investigation or not, because if they don't comply with the subpoena or the Justice Department determines that their compliance isn't sufficient, they can potentially be held in contempt. And contempt proceedings can flow from there up to and including fines and potentially even jail time. That can happen even if the department claims that the reporter was quote unquote not the target and that it was actually a leaker. So as a practical matter, I think that the claim that the Justice Department is making in its defense is really not accurate or fair to the facts. And yes, it will actually intimidate reporters, and it is designed to intimidate these reporters. I mean, just consider the fact that they went straight to the reporters on this, right? Rather than trying to exhaust their other methods of investigation. I think it sort of tells you what's going on here. And of course, the administration has been doing this. It's been controversial. They've issued subpoenas and then pulled them back. And now they're back to it, apparently because this story really upset the president.
Yeah, straight to the reporters, not in their offices, not through channels in their employment, like to their houses on a Friday night. That's where they got served. So the Times reports that the FBI ran the investigation Friday from the White House rather than the FBI headquarters. How is this a departure from the way things are normally run?
Well, unfortunately, this has now become a bit of a pattern. This is a very dramatic instantiation of it, but the White House and the Justice Department, the distinction between the two has practically collapsed. Trump directs the Justice Department on the things that he cares about, and the Attorney General, Pam Bondi, who just got fired a couple months ago, the Acting Attorney General, Todd Blanche, and the FBI Director, Kash Patel, have been very, very content to follow Trump's directions. Todd Blanche himself, who's up for confirmation this week, has said that this is something that the public should welcome when the president gets involved in directing his law enforcement to go after certain things. It's not helpful. It's not healthy for our democracy. And it is going to produce more and more of this unless and until there's some sort of effort, whether it's by the Senate this week when Blanche appears before them before the Judiciary Committee, to put some sort of stop to this or impose some sort of pressure on the administration to change the way that it is running the Justice Department and the FBI.
So the New York Times reports, Ankush, that the subpoenas were sought by the U.S. Attorney in Manhattan, Jay Clayton, who will appear Wednesday for his confirmation hearing as Director of National Intelligence. It is the very same day as Todd Blanche's confirmation hearing for Attorney General. It's also the day the New York Times journalists are set to appear before a federal grand jury in Manhattan. And we are going to get to Blanche in just a moment. But talk about Clayton's role in this, and what will these reporters face at this grand jury hearing?
Look, my guess is that there will be an effort to put off the grand jury appearance through some sort of litigation. But as for Clayton, look, the argument in favor of escalating Clayton to DNI was that he was some sort of, more professional, more reliable. Now, he has no experience being that qualifies him for the role. He had no experience, actually, that qualified him for his role as a top prosecutor in Manhattan. He had never been a prosecutor before. But what this is showing us is that he is prepared to take Trump's direction, even when those directions should not have been followed and that they are corrosive to American politics. So I think Congress is going to should be asking much harder questions this week about Jay Clayton. I know he looks the part, and that seems to have done a lot to gin up support for him. But this is a very, very telling episode here, and it does not reflect well upon him or Todd Blanche, who I'm sure signed off on this.
Okay, and Blanche, he's one set as well to appear before the Senate Judiciary Committee for his confirmation hearing Wednesday. Witnesses will then testify Thursday. You watched every Blanche appearance during his time as Deputy and Acting Attorney General. So describe what you observed and how you expect those hearings to go this week.
Yeah, it'll be no surprise to you and me that, there have been many, many serious substantive problems at the department. The emphasis on immigration enforcement, the refusal to probe the deaths of Renee Good, Alex Preddy, on and on and on. But one of the things that I found quite surprising as I went back over his record is really how abrasive and partisan he has emerged in this role. It's not terribly surprising, but I was really taken aback by how sharp and belligerent he's been, how many misrepresentations he has publicly made, including at one point, I didn't know this, he appears to have fabricated a quote that he attributed to former President Barack Obama about immigration policy, which is crazy to me. But also he's very, very antagonistic toward Democrats in the media. And we're now, a year and a half into this administration. I do not think Congress should be tolerating this the way they did a year and a half ago. And I know the public is not as enamored with this as they once may have been a year and a half ago when they waved him through the first time. Trump is extremely unpopular. And as I discuss in the piece, and I lay out some of these numbers, to the extent we have polling on the Justice Department's performance, the public has generally recoiled and disapproved of the things that have been going on at the department. So, he should be facing a very tough hearing. The math is getting even more difficult and more challenging with the variables surrounding McConnell and now the passing of Lindsey Graham.
Yeah,
so I think this is going to be...
Let me get to those numbers specifically, because Senate Judiciary, it is down to 11 Republicans and 10 Democrats, which means if just one Republican votes against Blanche, his nomination gets stalled, right?
That is correct. And there are two Republicans on the committee, Tom Tillis and John Cornyn, who have at various points expressed some reservations. Now, Tillis has said he's predisposed to vote in favor of Blanche, but he hasn't fully committed. Cornyn still has questions, he said. And even if Blanche gets past the committee, there are more Republican senators in the conference who have said that they have reservations and want to hear more from Blanche. So his nomination is far from a certain thing. And with Graham now passed away and gone and McConnell in the hospital indefinitely, there are more variables than he should be, that should be making him comfortable. He should really be worried about how this plays out.
And Khush Qadari, it's always great to talk with you. Thank you so much, my friend.